Hello guys, my name is Blue Digit, and I will be starting out this whole channel with a very simple premise. What to do when life feels pointless, right? I think that's something that we've all struggled with, and I think for myself and others, that can mean a lot of different things. Perhaps that can mean something with depression, or perhaps that can mean something more existential, right? However, I think for us to even have a genuine conversation here, something that actually we can have a back and forth on, we need to answer this first question, or else we'll never be able to get past anything else. And we're going to have a lot of intellectual honesty with each other. Now, in this entire channel and the entire history of this, you've got to realize that I am clearly not a perfect person. I am only human, and clearly, I am a believer of Christ. However, this can apply to anyone, and I want to believe, apply to anyone. However, when I say these things, just know that's where I come from, and no matter what, regardless, let's say, you see differently than me. Let's say you're an atheist, you're a Muslim, you're a Hindu. I do not care what you are. I want you to see the things that I can, and I want to see, how I can maybe help you in your life. Okay. I say this genuinely. I love everyone. I love my enemies. I love everyone. So I want to make that very clear as we start this, journey out together. Are we good? Do we start this well? Good. All right, let's jump into it. So I think this is a very good starting point again because, when life feels pointless, you feel like there's no compass. And that's the big thing with life. You need to have a compass. I feel like a lot of people genuinely don't know where to even start often, and that's the point. That's why you have schools and systems like that. But a lot of the times these systems have always also been kind of corrupted, you could say. I'm kind of stumbling over my words because it's you feel really bad because I know these people, these systems try their best, but for example, when it comes to these bigger things, they're discouraged from even talking about them. I'll give you a very simple example, and you'll know exactly what I'm saying. If I say murder is wrong, right? Most people can't go down to the bottom line. What is the end result of that? They'll just say, well, murder's wrong because it's wrong, or because you hurt someone. Well, why exactly are these things bad? People don't know how to get to the end result. And a lot of times, because we don't know how to do foundational questioning. I kind of just pulled that out of my butt. But foundational questioning, which a lot of people, especially professors, I'm sure would agree with me on, is something where essentially you're asking a question continuously to break down the formula into exactly what the beginning is. So you'll see that with a lot of math problems. You'll see that with a lot of history, right? Essentially what you are doing, right, is you're finding exactly why the why is, okay? And again, I apologize if I'm yapping. If you guys have questions, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to answer them, okay? And again, this is a conversation, as it should be. But for me, I find life is something that is not guaranteed, okay? I believe in God because, for me, He is something above myself, okay? He's something that is above me. But regardless if you believe in God or not, there's one thing we all share, and that is we need to find something that we believe in other than ourselves. Or else what happens is we fall into something that is an eventual nihilism. And the nihilism, which you find that is, it slowly becomes a circular reasoning that you can never truly avoid. And what I mean by that is, when you think of Nietzsche, right, one of the main, people that actually was a part of that ideology, the last conclusion he really came down to is it's not something that can truly sustain itself. If you fall down into the ideology, that's where you'll fall with. You can't grow with it. It's not something that eventually grows. It leads into a foundational thinking that is very surface level, and it stops there, and thus morality discontinues. Nietzsche is often characterized by one of his most popular quotes, which is "God is dead." And a lot of that is almost people think of it as an endorsement towards atheism, which is not exactly it at all. And I'll try to jump into that. Basically, what he's saying is that without God, okay, without a moral law giver, essentially what happens is there's a deconstruction of morals altogether, meaning nothing is objective, it's all subjective. For example, objectively, okay, I could say 1 + 1 = 2. I could show you that, and we can both see, for the most part, based off the facts, that can be proven, correct? While subjectively, I'd be like, oh, pizza's the best, but then you're like, no, actually, salmon's the best, or, something like that, right? That's more subjective reasoning. Now, that loss of foundation, basically the objective foundation of a moral lawgiver, that breaks down a lot of sense of meaning, and often what it'll do is it will straight up just disorient us in terms of what we can do and our overall productivity as human beings. And we got to be very careful about that because essentially what happens is then all we lean into is the wants. And as you can tell in life, that's not always good. To put this into frame, Dostoevsky, I believe I said that right, one of my favorite writers of all time, okay? Not that I inherently enjoy everything, but in terms of what it actually meant, okay, you should look him up. Great, great writer. I believe he did a lot of plays. Um, he wrote that essentially, if there is no God, everything's on the table. Meaning, you have free play to everything. The problem, though, is that also means that because there's free play to everything, there's also meaning to nothing. Essentially meaning that, okay, I could say the world, everything matters, right? Everything matters. But in the same sense, you can say nothing matters. And both of us would be right because it's both a subjective reasoning. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? And so when trying to find a point in your life, again, whatever you believe, I as a Christian can give you my stance, okay? But even if you're not, the one thing that I can guarantee that you probably need is a foundation that is bigger than yourself, something you can look up to, okay? For a lot of people, it might be just taking care of your family, okay? That might be something bigger than yourself. Go for it. Chase that down. Other people, such as myself, it might be God. There's a moral lawgiver, someone that you endlessly chase down. But that's the point. Okay, it's about having that bigger goal, something that is endless and, not finite. That is something you need to go towards. And that is where you can truly, in my opinion, find meaning and fight after. I'll be going through a few points here, but let's say Socrates, one of the best teachers of all time, he emphasized the idea of truly looking at the self-expression, and knowing, what truly are you, and truly trying to decode that within yourself. He spoke about that frequently within his writing. Well, I should say more teachings because, historical context, but you know what I mean. But then you have other people such as, let's say, Helen Keller that spoke very definitively about finding true happiness not from, self-worth, but something, again, beyond yourself. A worthy purpose. A worthy purpose. However, let's say that's not enough. Let's say you go off of more, again, what would be more Christian leaning, or let's say you're just asking straight up, hey, Joshua, what do you think? I'll tell you what you think, okay? And I actually have this one pulled up just because I don't remember off the top of my head. But here we go. So, from the King James Version, this is Proverbs chapter 3, 5-6. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. I think that is as straight up as it gets. Basically saying that, I ask you, believe in God. Don't put everything on yourself. Put everything onto him. And then go forth with those plans. Because you know what? We are failing. We are failing creatures. We are failing people. We are not meant to be perfect. And you should not be perfect. I honestly urge you to be someone that struggles forward. And we'll get into all these things, desperately in the future. In other videos, hopefully. But what I plead for you is, again, to find something that you can truly look at and be like, yep, that's bigger than me. And sometimes it's not something you want to do. Sometimes it's not something that's fun. An example is, let's say, bettering yourself. Bettering yourself for your family. Bettering yourself for the world. Try and do something that's, you might not see the fruits of, but someone else might. That's not always fun, because guess what? It's a lot of work. But you know what? That's the point sometimes. That's where the conclusion comes down to. But that's where you have to have these rationalizations and these long conversations here, right? Where it's like, okay, be honest with yourself, right? Be honest. Is this the point of life for you that actually does mean something? Or is it just the point where you're going to want to, do this stuff, right? That's what we really have to come down to. And you have to be, again, intellectually honest and look at all the evidence that you can, for what this world has to offer. For example, I've read the Torah, I've read the Quran, I've read multiple different versions of the Bible, and I've come down to my own conclusions. I've read a lot of agnostic reading, I've read a lot of atheist reading, I've read some things within Hinduism, I've read the teachings of Heart of Buddha, I've read so many different things that come down to my own conclusion, and I'll tell a story. You want a story? I'll tell a story. All right, here's my story time, and I'll leave you guys be for the rest of this video. I came down to my conclusion for what the point of life was, very harshly. I've always considered myself, a Christian, but in reality, I really was more agnostic for the beginning part of my life. I believed in God, but exactly, I couldn't bring down every which thing and be like, okay, here's the logical conclusion for everything. And frankly, I think every person that deals with anxiety, stress, fears death, these should look into those things and get into the nitty gritty. The best thing I did was actually, I sat in a room and I thought about this for a while, but essentially, it was after high school and I had to think about this stuff, right? It was probably like senior year, the end of it. And, again, I have a lot of family that was Christian, but also I had a lot of people around me that, said they're Christian. But at the same time, I bet you they could not name, more than probably like 5 people in the Bible. They probably couldn't do that. And a lot of them, I bet you would have never even been able to tell me what Bible they've read. So I went to college for 2 years. I only stopped because I couldn't afford anymore, sadly. But for those 2 years, I did go to college after high school. Um, I went to a Christian college. Okay, my father wanted me to go, and my stepmom. Well, I go, and this college, despite the fact there's a lot of good things about it, I didn't want to go because I just didn't see it as helping my opportunity in terms of actually growing within my field, right? Because I was trying to become a software engineer, which, by the way, I'm changing that. But when I was here, when I was in that place, I was trying to come to my conclusion with other things in life, but inadvertently, I think it was my freshman year, we had a class that basically was like the foundations of like Christian faith, right? And also, while I was doing that, every year, you had to go to, I believe it was like once a week, I believe. I could be wrong though. But I believe it was once a week you had to go to a church sermon. And they had their own little chapel there, right? But when you went there, what bothered me greatly, and let me mind you, this was a Christian college. Essentially, what would happen is there would be some singing. It would be some guy that speaks to you about something. A lot of times it wasn't even really like Christian related. And that's the reason I'm not bringing up the college, by the way. But it wasn't even Christian related. Or sometimes it'd be someone trying to sell something. And then at the end, we'd sing again and we'd all leave. And it felt off. We were forced to go there. We had to hear that. And it didn't feel right to me. And again, I was a very open-minded person at the time. At least I thought. And it's like, this is not Christian to me. This isn't right. Same time, though, I went to this other class that I was in. And that class, this teacher that, was trying to teach us this stuff, there's a lot of different texts that was coming in. And, this is a time towards like, I'm starting to question towards like, okay, why exactly do these people have different beliefs? Why exactly, is the whole world kind of doing this like passive thing where it's like, oh, well, you can be right and you can be right and you can be right when it comes to these like objective truths, right? And I did learn a lot in that class, especially when it came to, the main source of the Bible. But it's like, okay, what is the exact stuff? So I basically went down my own little rabbit hole. And I decided to do so basically because towards the end of the class, which, I was acing it, but still, like, it's one of those surface level things where it's like, okay, well, do I really have answers? Or am I just writing these down to, like, get answers, right? Which I did. I passed. I did very well in that class. I'm pretty sure I almost got a straight up 100 on that class. But the teacher, I think it was like a month or two after, he died. And he was a very nice man. I didn't know him very, very well, but I knew him, and he was a nice man. And the only thing I could think of at that moment, straight up, was, did he know God? He professed himself to be a Christian. Did he know God? And did he know he was going to pass him, that quick? And it also kind of just hit me because it's like, that's one that you literally just saw briefly. And the next time, you hear about them, like, they're kind of dead. It's like, it is jarring to an extent. So that was a moment where I was going to be honest with myself and intellectually honest. And that's where I was going to jump into this conversation here, obviously, right? And the conversation we're having together here. So I went on all these YouTube videos. I read as much as I could. I looked to all the different avenues I could. But at the same time, trying to be efficient because I'm still in all these classes. I'm still, if you guys don't know, I'm still doing, the Twitch and YouTube videos and all this other stuff, right? And still reading and watching, stuff I want. So I'm trying to be as efficient as possible, taking all this in while, still living that life. And I came to my own conclusion to what I believe based off of my own personal experience and also the evidence that was coming in. But the most important thing that I had was I went after it truthfully, intelligently, and passionately. Those are the three things you have to do when you're trying to find your purpose. What is the point to life, okay? And when you do that, I promise you, everything becomes like, it's like a light bulb lights up, right? And then all these things that were shrouded, it's like, okay, I see the point of this. I can see where this is going. You're never going to get it all. People, your grandparents, if you have some, your parents, they're still trying to figure stuff out, right? Because that's the whole point of life. We are fallible people. We're fallible creatures. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight with every fiber in your being, because you've seen it. You've seen what a successful man looks like. You've seen what an unsuccessful woman looks like, right? Man, woman, you know what I'm trying to say here, though. And the whole point of this is to march forward with an undying belief that you're going to try as hard as you can to make the most of your life, because you deserve it for yourself. You deserve it for your family. Even your family's not good to you. You deserve it for them. You deserve it for your friends. Again, even if they're not good for you, you have to be the example. And most of all, you deserve it for God. So, I tell you, what do you do when life feels pointless? You crawl forward and you find the point. Because I guarantee you, not everybody, everyone dies, but not everyone lives. That is a simple statement. And you can look at it. Another thing that I find, and again, we'll get into these other things in other videos, but I also find that the number one thing that people always find is everyone can despair, but not everyone's guaranteed happiness. I mean, think about it. There's babies that are literally born and they die in the mother's stomach. That's terrible. That's sad. There's people that we'll never see born that could have had wonderful lives and they don't get it. And yet we take so many things for granted. That is not the time to despair. This time to look at our lives, be grateful for what we have, and then we fight forward to find that purpose within life. And that is what I urge you to do. And be excited about the adventure. Be excited for what it is. And be excited to find what the truth is so that you can follow it. Now again, the crazy thing is, if it's a truth you don't like, are you going to follow it, right? I came to the conclusion that I do want that, and that's why obviously, I put my faith in Christ. But I fail every single day, miserably. But at the same time, for you, I strongly encourage you, look into your truth. Look into what the evidence points to. And obviously for me, I would obviously, hopefully you would find that in Christ. But for whatever it is, I wish you the best in that endeavor. And truly, try your best. There's multiple resources out there. I'm sure there's multiple people, whatever you're trying to look into, that will help you within that endeavor. But be honest, be kind to yourself, and push forward with an unstoppable urge to find, what the meaning is for your life. I love you. God bless. Remember, guys, smile, keep right up, and let's fight for a future so bright. You see much rise. My name is Luciano. I'll see you guys in the next video.